I've been learning in my journey about self-awareness, I felt like this is an important topic. It's almost like the, one-on-one self-awareness, or one-on-one for you to really start your journey of getting to know yourself, but also how God does perceive us. Because I am a servant in the church, and because this is very relevant to us, our community, I will be using examples from our community, but also I'm not being specific about anybody. This is just a general idea of what I encounter over the years. Why I chose this topic, because I feel, again, it's very relevant for us as to become aware of ourselves, to become aware of our pattern, to become aware of how we love, how we fight, and why we do what we do. When you first heard the topic, what came to mind? I want to hear from you, by the way. I don't want to lecture. I want this to be a discussion. So, and again, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but definitely I want to hear from you tonight. So when you heard the topic, the patterns we repeat, what came to mind? Some triggers that happens that we're not aware of, unconscious. Yeah, sometimes we do things and we're not sure why do we do this. Absolutely, yes. And I don't know if any of you, but certainly it happened to me where you reacted or responded in a situation, and then you come and you ask yourself, why did I act this way? Why did I say this? Why did I respond? What came out of me, and what's the reason for that? And it's kind of a little bit too late because I already kind of responded. And that's why I'm inviting you tonight to slow down, to pause, and to reflect, and to be curious. And as you're figuring out your own pattern, we're not going to judge. I don't want you to judge yourselves. I certainly will not judge you because I'm in your shoes. But definitely we are very quick to judge ourselves. So what I'm hoping that we can do tonight, just make an observation about your pattern. How do you usually respond when you're triggered? What does a trigger mean? That if something happens and then all of a sudden I go from a 0 to 100, there's an intense emotion inside of me. That's a trigger, okay? So again, I want you to come like with an open mind, open heart, to be curious, and to ask yourself these questions that I'm going to invite you to ask right now. What happens to me when I feel hurt, when I feel rejected, when I feel misunderstood, criticized, or disconnected? And you don't have to answer me. This is just for you to answer within you. And is there a way I can learn to respond in a different way? Because sometimes we feel the way I respond to a situation as if this is who I am. It's my identity. I'm just an angry person, or I'm just a person who is nervous all the time. And actually that's not true. Those ways of responding to situations, those are not our identity. They're not our personality or our character. They're just behaviors. They're ways of responding, and very much it can be changed. That's why, again, I'm here tonight to tell you, you're not beyond changed. And definitely that's what our Heavenly Father is inviting us to do, is constantly to work on ourselves for change. Okay? Yes. Sure. Yes. So where do you want me to go? This way. Okay. Yeah, no worries. Okay, yep, perfect. Okay, can everybody see me? Now I have to look this way. Okay. So let's move on. Okay, so again, I want you to look at the questions and just reflect within you internally, okay? So have you ever thought, why did I react like that? Said something in the moment and regretted it, or needed reassurance but came across as demanding, like I wanted somebody to tell me it's going to be okay, but it felt like as if I'm nagging or complaining. Or I shut down because I felt too intense, a lot of emotions that I completely shut down and I pulled away. Or I overthought a text, a silent or change in tone. And we're very good nowadays with now communicating through texting to interpret and overanalyze texts, right? Like, why did they say okay with so many Y's instead of okay, right? Are they yelling at me? Are they angry? Are they saying okay with an angry tone, right? So we kind of put emotions into the words? Or why did I get a heart that is blue and not red? Or why did I get this face versus another face? And again, it could be just the simplest thing. Or why is my text being unseen, right? And then all of a sudden, I'm triggered, I'm hurt, something is happening inside of me. And it could be, as I said, the simplest, the slightest thing, okay? So what I would like, definitely again, for us to keep observing is when I receive this text, when I respond this way, this is the beginning of our pattern. Why? Again, the way I react, that's the beginning of it. So again, we're just at the beginning of it. And often it's not by random or it's not by chance. So our pattern, our reaction, it's not randomly. It's coming from somewhere. Where do you think it's coming from? Where do you think our reactions are coming from? Any ideas? Thoughts, yes. Where do our thoughts come from? Worldview, absolutely. And where do our worldview come from? Yep. Yep, all of the above, absolutely. So it could be culture, could be society, could be stories, could be from our parents. We'll find out in a bit all the influences. So it's not like a one thing, but it could be a combination of things that forms our way of reacting. But as Salwa said, it starts with our thoughts, okay? So really the trigger is the thought. So in order to pick a pattern, it's a loop. It's very predictable. If you guys can get a hold of the first part of it, you will be able to see it eventually. So first, it starts with a trigger. Something happens, okay? So I want you to think of something that just happened to you, and it doesn't need to be too triggering, too upsetting, okay? Then there's a story. I put a meaning to it. What does this mean? When somebody leaves my text unseen, what does it mean? They don't care about me. I'm not important. Right? So there's already a story is already very quickly formulating. And then there's an emotion. When, of course, when I keep repeating over and over, I'm not important, or the person doesn't care about me, of course the emotion is not going to be very nice. It's going to be negative. Okay? So what I feel underneath, so I might get hurt, I might get angry, but there's something else I'm feeling underneath that anger. I could be feeling disappointed, I could be feeling sad, feeling maybe I'm rejected. Okay? Then the way I react, it's I'm protecting myself. I'm not going to respond to them. I'm never going to talk to them again. Or I'm going to send 5 messages, 5 texts to see where they're at. Right? So the way I react, there's a reason for it. I'm trying to protect something. And how does my reaction have an impact on somebody else? So again, this is very important that we kind of see that pattern. Okay, so it starts with something happens, then the meaning, my thought, what's my story, and then the emotion and how it makes me feel in my body. I protect, I react, I do something, and how does my reaction impact somebody else? Okay? Are we on board? Okay. I'm going to ask you questions at the end. Okay, so where do our patterns come from? Sorry, you said your name is? Bishoy, thank you, Bishoy. Bishoy said a few things, Salwa said a few other things. So it's all of the above between what Bishoy and Salwa said, that it comes from family, early relationships, right? How we saw people in our household fight or do a conflict, whether they would not talk to each other or whether they would sit down and talk, whether they yell, whether they throw things, whether they walk away but then come back and let's talk about it. Again, how people in our life did conflict and how they came back from conflict. Past experiences, so not just my family's experience, but also my own experiences with friends. My temperament and nervous system, how usually I respond, because you'll notice different people will respond differently. Not everybody responds in the same way. So really how my nervous system can tolerate a conflict or can tolerate a situation. So some people may fight, some people may pull away, some people may try to pursue and keep going, and I want to fix it, I want to solve it. culture, community, faith, current stresses, right? If I'm going through something very hard, that definitely can impact the way I'm thinking, and what we practice. So what we repeat over and over again. So if I hold on to a message and I keep repeating it to myself, that message becomes a core belief, okay? So if I keep repeating to myself, I'm not important, I don't matter, nobody likes me, when I repeat that day in and day out for years and years and years, guess what? The next time a situation happens, I will believe it. I'll actually, right away, it would become automatic that I'm not important. And then I will continuously respond from that, I'm not important. So whether right away I mistrust people, that they don't take me seriously, or again, you'll notice your pattern will be very similar across relationships. And that's why it's so important that you go through this so that you can change the relationships. Sometimes in the therapy session, I would ask people, why are you in therapy? Why are you doing this? And they say, I'm doing it for myself, or I'm doing it for my children, or I'm doing it for my spouse, right? I'm doing it so that I can have a more peaceful, coexistence. Or I'm doing it because it matters to me, how I am around people. So again, there's a very good reason why we're doing this, so that we can improve on the way we connect with people. Okay? Does that matter to you, the way you connect with people? Because we are beings that love to connect, but we want to just know how to do it. And the most heartaches that we get is from interacting with others, right? They didn't respond to me, they didn't say hello, they ignored me, I'm not being invited, I'm being excluded, right? And we get to find this out at a very early age, right? As soon as we start school and we see how others treat us, right away we figure out, okay, I'm getting messages about who I am and where do I belong in the world. And from these messages, that's what continuously stays with me. And if nobody fixes it or corrects it for me, I grow up with these messages about myself, okay? So it's very important what we keep on repeating, we want to change that. We want to repair that. We want to say different things about ourselves. And that's why it's important as Christians, we don't take who we are from the world. We take that from our Heavenly Father. That's why it's important when I usually do these presentations, that's what my message is, usually is all about that I get to see myself through the eyes of the Lord, not through what the world tells me about who I am or what I must be, okay? Okay, and it's very important at your age right now. That's why I love the fact that I'm here, because I feel as young adults, you have time to fix that, to work on that. Because I see adults in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and they're with these messages about themselves. They've lived it most of their life, that they're not worthwhile, that they're not valuable. And you can just imagine their relationships with their spouse, with their children, because they've lived these messages for most of their life. So I'm so glad that we are having this conversation. And again, please feel free to ask questions, so that way I can make sure that you got the information. Any questions? Yes. Do you want to just hold the mic?
All right, I hear temperament, I hear character, I hear personality. What's the difference? Is there any of those that are fixed or not?
Okay. So again, what we repeat over time, it can become part of who we are, but it's not fully who we are. Okay? So our temperament, we think that this is something we grew up with, and this is something about who we are, but it's not. Okay? So again, when somebody says this is my personality, or this is my character, or this is who I am, especially when it's about our way to react or a way you behave, that it's not true, that it's not changeable. That's why I tell people, even people who struggle with anxiety or struggle with depression or other, sort of mental illnesses, we say that this is what you're dealing with. This is not who you are. Because sometimes people will tell me, I'm an anxious person. And I say, you're dealing with anxiety. Or I'm depressed. I say, you're dealing with depression. So it's very important that we don't characterize our behavior, and we don't characterize, what we do as if this is who we are. Because it makes us feel stuck, that we can't change that. Okay? I think somebody had their hand up. Sherry? No? Okay. Please feel free to add, because, Yeah, Sherry right there. She's a social worker, so I know she would have some stuff. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but honestly, like again, I want welcome comments and any ideas, just so that we feel like we're benefiting from the topic. And Doris, same thing. If you have any comments, would love to hear from you. Okay. Usually when Abuna's here, I would pick on Abuna, but Abuna's not here, so I'm going to pick on the ladies here. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so under the reaction, so now we're moving a one step closer or one step deeper. So under every single reaction, whether it's us or somebody else, and by the way, as we're talking about ourselves, I want you also to put it in the lens of the other person as well, the other person we're dealing with, right? So as they're reacting towards you, there's something in that reaction underneath that. Nobody is acting or reacting to a situation for no reason. Even children, we say that misbehave in a classroom, there's a reason for it. And if we can find out the reason, that will be very helpful of how to respond differently. So if somebody yells at you, and yes, you will respond to the yelling by yelling back, all we're gonna be doing is yelling match. Right? But if I understand that the person who's yelling or upset or short-tempered, they're actually tired, or something else has happened and it's making them feel upset or disappointed or sad, the way I'm going to respond to them is going to be different. I might ask them to give them a hug or actually sit down and listen. So it's so important, whatever we're seeing in ourselves or somebody else, there's something else underneath. And usually the question is, that everybody wants an answer to is, am I safe? Am I safe in that relationship? Am I seen in that relationship, in that connection? Do I matter? Can I count on you? So this is the core of almost everybody. They want to know if I'm really safe in that space. Again, am I seen? Am I being understood? Do I count? Do I matter to you? And usually, how people respond to these questions when they're kind of confused and they don't have an answer to it is those four things. I hope you can see them. Yes. I know the writing is a little bit small, but hopefully you can see it. I may pursue. So when I don't feel safe, I may pursue and ask 500 questions, right, to get reassurance. So some people you'll notice, and you can think of yourself or you can think of somebody else in your life who continuously pursue you and wants reassurance from you. Am I safe? Am I seen? Do I matter to you? Okay, or I may be doing this. And again, that's why I told you tonight how curious you are about your own behavior. That's very important, that we don't judge ourselves. If I'm the type of person who I'm sending, 5 texts when somebody doesn't respond to me, I need to hold myself accountable to this. Okay? Because the way I pursue someone, it's actually what's pushing them away. So again, I want to hold myself accountable. I want to hold myself responsible. If this person is pulling away, I might be doing something. Not that they have, and I get people who, have very good at labels. Oh, they have abandonment issues or they have commitment issues. But what am I doing actually to push somebody away? That's very important for me to know. Some people may withdraw. Okay, so if they feel like they're not safe or they're not being seen, they just close off. They don't want to say anything. Okay. Or I may try to control and solve the situation, and I feel I'm responsible for other people's feelings, so I jump right away to many solutions to solve it, or I tend to please or avoid, okay? And that's when I'm completely shut down and disconnected. And you'll notice yourself in one of these, or sometimes we alternate, but one of them can be dominant, right? And this is when I am hurt or triggered. Again, remember, that's the reaction, okay? So when something happens, I get a thought, I get a feeling, and then I respond, and I may respond with any of these 4, okay? So these are strategies, but they're not fixed identities. They're not our identity, okay? And that's very important, again, to keep recognizing this. Okay. So the way how it goes between people, and again, this is going to be very important for those of you who might be dating, about to be, or to start a relationship, or they're kind of in that sort of phase, or maybe about to be engaged, like again, or, in any sort of relationship, even in friendships, with my parents, with people I care about, especially people I care about. You'll notice that this is a cycle. And why am I saying the cycle is the enemy? Because sometimes when we have those reactions, we ask, whose fault is it? And we kind of constantly look for who to blame. Is it me to blame, or is it somebody else to blame? By the way, when I tell you to take responsibility, it doesn't mean that I'm asking you to blame yourself. Remember, I said no judgment. So we're not blaming you, and we're not blaming the other person. Okay? And why this is so important, so that we can actually deal with the person. If we keep blaming the other person, we're not holding ourselves accountable, and then the other person always becomes a target for me. Like, I put on the other person everything, and that's not right either. Okay? And we'll learn how to discern how to do that. But what I'm trying to say is that it's not you, it's not the other person who we're blaming, who's the enemy, and sometimes we call it like a demon dialogue, or a demon between us, is the cycle itself. It's what happened between me and the other person. So when I keep pursuing someone, I keep protesting, I keep asking why you don't care about me, what's wrong, like what have I done, please tell me, please talk to me. The other person might withdraw because he or she may feel pressured. I need to give an answer, I need to say something, I don't know what to say, I'm confused, I'm just gonna pull away. And when I pull away, the person who's pursuing will feel, oh, you don't care, I'm not important. And they're going to continuously pursue and continuously try to figure it out. What have I done? Please let me know, what have I done? So the more somebody pursues, the more somebody withdraw, and vice versa. The more you withdraw, the more the other person will pursue you. So again, the identity, we want to identify the loop. The loop is the pattern that happens between us. Okay? Can we relate to that? Like, I want to hear from you. Can you relate? Can you think of a relationship where this happens? And if you don't mind to share, I would love to hear your input. Yes. Can I give you the mic, please?
I figured the less you care, the more you are in power. But the thing is, some relationships needs some passion, some emotions. So I think this is one of the sins that the church didn't care enough to talk about, which is to engage in kind of relationship with somebody as a friend or as a lover or as whatever. That comes with commitment, like kind of moral contract that you should be up to the other person's expectations, especially if it should be mutual, like going back and forth. So if somebody is giving all they have, so the other person should do the same. It's like we are people. We are not disposable shoes or whatever. You can like stretch your hand to the shelf, pick someone, and then at some other point, no, I don't have time for you. So you have to keep what you do with somebody at the same level all the time, so they know what they are to you. But like with the lack of integrity and the lack of agape or mahabba nowadays, because of the kathrat al-ithmi people, they might be like on daily basis, like in church and going to liturgies and everything, but like they have no problem breaking somebody's heart. So I found out like the less you care, the more you are in power in any level of relationship. Like even they have a saying in Egypt, خد اللي يحبك ما تاخدش اللي تحبه. And that was very wise, by the way. Yes, it's tasteless and senseless, but it has a power in it. So the question is the key to that is to face the world without any kind of emotions, to protect yourself?
Are there any other questions or comments? We'll take it one at a time. Yeah, I definitely do relate to what you're saying, and I definitely do appreciate and understand what you're saying. And I think from the faith value of it, when you see it, yeah, that could be very relevant. And I think what we're trying to do here is really, for each person, is to hold themselves accountable. That's what I'm hoping, that as I'm not receiving what I'm looking for, is also what am I giving? What's my part in that sort of tango or that loop that I just talked about? So definitely, again, as I describe the pattern, there are the thoughts, and again, the way I grew up, the way I experience life, there are the emotions. Sometimes people are not very good with recognizing their emotions. Sometimes people are not very good at telling you how they feel. They just react, and they just pull away. But it's how much they can tolerate conflict. It's how much they can tolerate distress. Because no two people are alike and will disagree. But how are we disagreeing? That makes a huge difference. That's why I say to couple, in the dating time or in the engagement time, like, it's so important for you to know, how are we repairing? How are we doing conflict? How are we fighting? So the important piece is not that we're not fighting. Actually, when couple don't fight, I get concerned. They need to fight and they need to resolve. And from resolving, then we can tell how the other person is responding, right? Because I do hear from couples that, during the engagement, my fiance went on like a week of no talking, silent treatment, right? And then they get married, and then the first conflict, that silent treatment happens again and again and again. Yes, because that's something that's very typical of the person, of how to respond to conflict. Whenever there's conflict, I don't talk, right? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. That is a red flag. Absolutely. I'm saying that is a red flag, right? But if the person is willing to take a deep breath, and I'm going to show you what's the healthy way of doing it. So if the person is taking a pause, but then they're coming back and talking, okay, now we're talking, now we're communicating, right? So it's very important, yes, to look out for these red flags. How are we repairing conflict? What is the other person, the way they think, the way they express their emotions, right? The way they react. And again, what I'm talking about here, by the way, and this is a disclaimer that I would have said it at the end of the presentation, but also I want to say it now, we're talking about relationships between two people that are healthy or somewhat able to manage being in a safe way. Because we get ourselves in relationships when it's not safe, and that's not what I'm talking about. Okay? So if you find yourself in an unsafe relationship where there could be abuse, or there could be, things that are being cross-boundaried, like you're going over the boundaries, it's very important that we stop and we say no and get mentored or get help, or, again, figure it out. So again, I can't be taking a soft stand, or I can't be talking slowly, or what I'm going to show you in an abusive relationship, okay? So it's very important that we make the distinction. So if I'm getting a silent treatment for like a week, and then it goes into 2 weeks, and then it goes into a month, this is a red flag. This is something, okay? And we can't ignore it. And we can't say, if I say I'm sorry and I apologize and it's all better, but then that happens again and again and again. I need to kind of process this and rationalize through it, okay? So very important that, yes, as we're talking about this, that as you're examining yourself, but you also examine, where am I at with the other person? And again, we're talking about friendships. We're talking about any sort of relationship that's intimate and close to your heart, okay? So I want you, as part of, again, examining our own reaction, I want you to know what your body does. Again, remember, we got trigger, we got hurt. The thought came on, right, automatically. Then the emotion. The emotions happen in our body, okay? Before I react, and that's why the pause is going to be very important. Before I react, something happens in my body. Either my heart rate goes up, I tense up, the blood rushes, through my face, and you will be experiencing different reactions in your body. It's different for everybody, but it could be very similar as well. You get agitated, you get loud, or you stand up, or you sit down, or right? So again, this is something for you to figure out for yourself. When I get emotional, what do I usually do? Like, what does my body do? okay? So some people can completely leave because their body cannot tolerate it. They're in so much distress, their nervous system is completely dysregulated that they cannot tolerate being in that conflict. And again, as we were saying, it doesn't mean that we disappear for a week. It means like I need to just take 5 minutes to just take a deep breath, and I will come back and we'll talk again, okay? So now this is the beef of what I want to share with you. It's the acronym of pause, but it's literally a pause, where I want you to pause your body, okay? And before the pattern is repeated over and over again, and sometimes I tell people even a 10-second pause, okay? Just to self-examine what's going on for me right now when I'm triggered, okay? And I want you to feel your heart rate. So all of you, I'm gonna invite you to take your right hand and put it on your heart. And I want you to just I'm gonna stop talking, and for a few seconds, I want you to feel your heart rate. So some of us may feel like it's beating fast. Some of it may feel it's actually slow or shallow breathing as well. So now I'm gonna ask you to take a deep breath, and the way we do it is you breathe through your nose as if you're sniffing on a flower, and then you're gonna blow out as if you're blowing out a candle. So I want you, 1, 2, 3, go. Hold it, and then you let it go. Okay, one more time, take a deep breath. And you let it go. And literally, that, like it didn't even take us 10 seconds, that 5 seconds can actually slow us down from reacting. And sometimes I call it the miracle moment, when we can actually stop ourselves from reacting right away. Remember, we're not responding. Responding, you actually take a pause, but you're reacting. So if you can take a pause from reacting and slowing yourself down, that is a miracle moment. I did a whole presentation one time on what the miracle moment is. It's like that sort of moment in time where a shift happens, where I was going to act in this way, but then I decided I'm going to take another direction. I'm going to act this way. Okay? And then we want to acknowledge, after we did the breathing, we want to acknowledge what happened. So the AF for acknowledging the trigger, what just happened? Okay? Like I just got ignored, or my text was not read for like a couple of hours, whatever that is, as silly as it is or as huge as it is. Sometimes, even for me, Hanan, I feel something is not right. I cannot tell what it is, but I don't know if you ever feel that feeling in your heart. Something is unsettling, right? And you wonder, like, what's going on? And I kind of have to really pause and sit down, like, what just happened? And I go over all my conversations, what I did in the morning, what I did. And then when I actually pause and settle, I then get to it. Yes, it was this conversation with my son, for instance, or this conversation with my husband. And something about it in the conversation that didn't just sit well with me. And I keep digging to figure it out. Sometimes journaling helps, okay? And that's why people love to journal, just because that's when they can go over what just happened, okay? So I want to acknowledge the trigger. Very important for me to figure out what just happened, what upset me, what hurt me. And understand your story. What am I telling myself? When my husband just ignored a request, what did I tell myself in that moment? I was coming to him. I cooked a very nice meal. I asked him to try it out. He just came, looked at it, he said, I don't like it, and he walked away. Okay, and I'm like, okay, what's the story here? What just happened, right? I am disappointed. Again, I'm just picking a silly example, but honestly, it could be very triggering for someone, right? Where I was cooking all day, and then all of a sudden, whoever I cooked for, they just don't care. And what's the story? What am I saying to myself is they just don't care about me. All my work is unappreciated, right? And again, all these, remember those 4 questions, am I safe? Am I seen in that situation? I'm not seen, because nobody saw that I was in the kitchen for the past 3-4 hours. And that's what hurt me, that my work went unnoticed. And there's nothing wrong. We're all humans. Again, and for you to allow yourself to say your story. You're not being because I know the next thing is I'm already judging myself. I'm so stupid, I'm so selfish, I'm so silly, like I should be self-sacrificing, I should be giving to my family without questioning, right? And right away I jump into judging myself. I want you to put that aside. What hurt me is I was not seen, that I was standing in the kitchen all day. And sometimes we even say it in our fight. You just don't know, you just don't see me, you don't appreciate me. That's your story. Okay? But I want you to say that to yourself first. And I want you then to share the emotion with yourself. What is it that I'm feeling? I'm hurt, or I'm disappointed. And then I want to engage with a clear request. What is it that I need in that moment? Somebody to appreciate me. I want to be appreciated. And I can actually go with that to my husband and say, by the way, when this and that happened, I felt unappreciated. Not that you don't appreciate me versus I felt unappreciated. Again, I'm bringing it back on me, because when we say you, again, you're pushing the person away, right? You're accusing them of something where maybe unintentionally they didn't mean to do that. So do you see how it's connected? Okay. So pause. P for pause your body. A for acknowledge the trigger. U is understand your story. What is my story? What am I saying? The thought that Salwa told us. What am I thinking? Share the softer emotion, not the anger. I'm angry, but something else is going on underneath. And then I want to engage with a clear request. What is it that I want in that moment? I want to feel safe. I want to feel heard. That's what I'm going to go with. Okay. Any questions about that? Is that hard to do you think, to pause? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it takes practice. Remember how I told you in the beginning that we have something on repeat? The thought is on repeat. The reaction is on repeat. So it became part of my way of responding or reacting. Now we're learning something new. I tell people when I work with people in therapy, I tell them, okay, it's as if I'm learning a new skill. I'm learning how to ride a bike for the first time. So the first time I'm on a bike, I'm not very balanced, right? And I may slip, I may fall. So it's okay. It's okay. If you try and you don't get it, it's okay to try again. Okay? But again, you keep at it. You keep being consistent. You keep asking yourself those questions. What am I feeling? What am I thinking? Right? The way I reacted the other day, was that okay? Well, it did definitely cause conflict between me and my husband. Is this how I want our relationship to be? Do I want to continue to be critical of him, judgmental? Do I want to continue to create that sort of conflict, or do I want something different? And sometimes when I put it out like that also in the therapy session, like, what is it that you want versus what is it that you're doing? And when there's a disconnect or a conflict, like, I want to have a good relationship with my husband, but then I'm doing everything not to have a good relationship. I'm being very critical. I'm creating always chaos, right? Then I'm not really in congruence with what I want, right? I'm not being very peaceful. Okay? Questions? Are we good? Yeah, so far so good? Okay. We're almost there. So I know we hear the word boundaries all the time. What is a boundary? It's a line you don't cross. Some people, they think boundary is a wall, that I need to put a wall between me and you. And it's not a wall. It's a fence where, you see the fence, you see the line, as you said, and I appreciate you saying a line, because a line is just a line, right? But it's important that I communicate that line. And I'm not creating a disconnect between me and you, and I tell you about my line, right? And also having no boundaries whatsoever, having no line, I could just be in your space and I could be suffocating you, and vice versa, right? When we have a line, when we're clear about that line, then we're able to have a good relationship. Because I understand, sorry, your name is? Ray. I understand Ray's line, where it is at, and he also gets mine. So now we can communicate, and now we can coexist in a space where we understand each other. And it's very important, it's on me that I continuously communicate that line. And by the way, that line can change, right? It's not like a set in stone. But it's so important in a conflict to say, I am not okay, I need a 5 minutes, or I need 15 minutes, and we will come back and talk. And it's okay for someone to say, I need to talk, but you know what, I'll give you your space. And a whole lot could happen in in these very few words, okay? So it's to assure the person, I care about you, but I am not okay right now. But I still care about you. I need 5 minutes, but I still care about you, right? It's very important that we continuously assure that I still care, but I need to also care for myself. I need also to take care of myself, okay? And I want you to think, again, a boundary is not, you're not punishing the person, and you're not disappearing on them. You're not refusing their vulnerability. All you're asking is for time to take care of yourself. That's very important that we understand. A boundary is not supposed to be something mean or selfish. Okay? And also it is very important to understand when I don't have a boundary, I don't have a good relationship. Because most likely, either this person is going to be in my space or I'm going to be in theirs, and it's going to build resentment. And and therefore it's not going to be it's not going to be a loving relationship. I'm going to definitely resent that person. So again, why boundaries is so important, that we can continuously have a loving relationship. I can't do it, I'm sorry. Right? I love you, but I'm not available. And it is okay to say that, okay? And you're not being a good Christian, because, again, I hear that all the time. Am I being selfish? Am I not being a good Christian? If I'm not self-sacrificing and giving out of my time? But then you're left with nothing. When you keep giving, you're left with nothing to give, right? And sometimes we say people are giving from empty cups. There's nothing there, right? How am I doing with time? Okay. Yeah, I'm almost done. Okay, we're good? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, and we'll leave a little bit of room for question as well, or we can do one-on-one questions. Definitely, I can do that as well. Okay? So again, what I'm inviting you, that's part of the solution, right? Because I know I may go through a presentation, people tell me, and then what do we do? Here it is. Pause, and then we communicate boundaries, okay? And again, it could be a very simple statement, and those who knows me and worked with me know that we can just come up with a simple statement, and that would be what I need to communicate in the moment, okay? So not everything is just a pattern. What does that mean? You can go ahead and read the slide. I don't know if you can see it. Remember the disclaimer I gave you? Right? Remember, if there's a disclaimer I gave you that, right? In any relationship, there's a pattern. What's that? Yes. Yes. If it's a healthy relationship, absolutely, right? We can definitely figure out that pattern. But if it becomes a relationship where you feel you're suffocating, you feel you're being violated in any way, that's when we need to take a step back from the relationship. So it's not like, I love you, but I need 5 minutes. No, we can't continue having, because the pattern of abuse, the cycle of abuse is totally different than the pattern I described to you today, okay? And again, please do seek help. If you find yourself in such a relationship, please do seek help. And someone, sorry, your name is? The one in the back that you shared? George shared with us some red flags, right? It is a red flag. Then please do seek support, do seek help, okay? Whether you're in the dating time or the engagement, or when you're married, it's a whole different story. But if you're still in the beginning of a relationship, it's so important that you receive support and mentorship, whether from your father of confession, whether you're from servants at the church, or right, or somebody older than you that you trust, right? And again, as servants, we're all here for you. So it's so important that you don't get to do this on your own, and that you do seek support. Your parents are good also support. I know sometimes they may not feel like it, or it doesn't sound like it, but definitely they have a thing or two that they can share with you that could be very helpful. So if your parents have like an intuition, or They're telling you something, just pay attention to it. Don't completely disregard it right away, okay? So what we're looking for tonight, again, I want you to leave with something, is we want to map your own loop, your own pattern. So again, I know we're very quick to think of the other person or other relationships that we have, but I want you to think of your own pattern, right? What is a trigger for me? What am I feeling, right? How does it impact me? First, what's my story? How do I protect myself? And how does it impact somebody else? And ask yourself, what is it that I needed in that moment? And by the way, it takes you to slow down. You cannot find this on the go. And in the middle of the situation of the conflict, you're not going to be able to figure that out. Okay? That takes time away on your own to reflect and to come back. And again, as you practice, it will start to come up automatically in the relationships after that. Okay? So just to kind of tie it all into a spiritual message, just so that we make sure that we're on track here with our spirituality as well, that this is something that our Lord is inviting us to, is to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. So not to give in to our thoughts, not to give in to our story, not to give in to the lies that we learned or we picked up along the way, but consistently and continuously try to work on being transformed. Okay? So this is very important to know that when somebody's so stuck, and by the way, this is something also an indication for us, when somebody's so stuck in their way of thinking, we know something is going on. Okay? People who have gone through trauma or have gone through serious experiences that impacted them, they're so set on their ways. Even if their way seems, the right thing, or, we gotta pray, 7 days a week, and right, and it seems so extreme. We need to question this. We need to ask it. And not that I'm saying, being close to the church or being spiritually is not a good thing, but if it's done in such an extreme way, it's trying to protect some hurt. It's trying to protect something. And it's worthwhile, if I care about the person and I want to invest in the person, is to question, to ask that, to be curious without judgment. And definitely for ourselves as well. So what changes a pattern is we notice. First, I need to notice. I need to observe myself. I need to own my part. And my goodness, this is one of the hardest things, is for me to take responsibility of my own actions, to hold myself accountable. When I jump to defensiveness, that took me years, by the way, to figure out that part, even for me, right? When I jump into defending myself and into explaining and over-explaining, right? I'm not holding myself accountable. And again, that's one of the hardest things we work on in a therapy session, especially when I'm working with couples. What is yours and what is yours, right? Just to figure that part out, it's so hard, because right away, I feel like I'm being victimized. I feel like I'm being wronged. And again, that's coming from my own hurt, my own pain, that I don't feel safe, that I don't feel seen, right? That's my own pain, and I need to speak up about this. And because it's so vulnerable, because it's so painful, it's not very easy for us to speak up about it, okay? That's why it takes a little bit of time and a little bit of, feeling safe and feeling okay to open up to that part of you. So I want you to notice, I want you to own your part, and I want you to practice a new way of approaching a situation, okay? And there's a ton of ways to do that. We're not left to only two options, because sometimes I hear people, they give me only two options. I say, you know what, there's a third option and a fourth option, a fifth option. And we need to expand on that. That's when we know we have been working very well in our journey, that we become flexible, that we become psychologically flexible to expand on different ways of looking at things and doing things and the way we respond. So awareness, it creates choices. Choices creates change, and repetition creates a new pattern. So I want you to remember that. Awareness, it creates a choice. Okay, when I become aware, now I know I have choices. Choices creates change, and then we keep on repeating the new change. Eventually it will become our new pattern. So let's talk. Now it's your time to talk now. So I'm going to ask a few questions. And again, you're welcome to share or if you don't want to, that's again for you to reflect on. If you want to get your phone out, you want to get your notes out, and you want to start writing down some reflection, because I feel it's important that we don't leave tonight without sort of coming up with few things. So I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to take like a few seconds to write it down. So please get your phones out. This is when you're allowed to use your phone. And get the notes app. And I want you to write down, and I want you to answer that question. What usually triggers you? And when you get triggered, what is the story that you're saying to yourself about you, about yourself? And how do you usually respond? Do you ignore? Do you try to fix it? Do you try to please? Do you freeze sometimes? I don't know what to do. And what are you trying to protect when I act the way I do, or I react the way I do? What is it that I'm trying to protect? And the last thing is, what would be a better way to respond? If I were to kind of really take a minute or two, how would I respond differently? And by the way, this is, again, so important, because that opens up these ideas, these choices that I told you about. Okay. And please do repeat that exercise as often as you can, because it will definitely be helpful to you. Okay? So again, you can ask yourself, what triggers me? What usually triggers me? What is the story that I usually say to myself? How do I usually respond? And can I respond in a different way? Okay, and as I'm closing, I want you to, I'm going to tell you a few things that I feel will resonate with you. So I want to leave you with these thoughts, that your patterns may explain your reaction, but they don't have to control your future relationships. Okay, very important. That yes, the way I react, I might get to, like I get angry, or I completely shut down. We're humans. But it doesn't mean that it has to dictate how I'm going to be in the future relationship. There's something I can change. Self-awareness, it's not about judging ourselves. Okay? It's about recognizing. So I don't need to keep defending myself. I don't need to over-apologize. I tell people you don't need to keep over-apologizing and defending, right? You're just recognizing, this is what I tend to do when I'm hurt. And then learning to say, but I have another choice. I have another way of responding. And you will not respond perfectly every time. I don't have to be perfect. I may still yell, but at least I don't yell every single time. I'm getting better. I'm working on it. I always tell my children, I am work in progress. I'm on this journey. And when they give me good, positive feedback, I know I've done something. I'm doing better. Because I always say I'm a recovered yeller. Yes, once upon a time I used to do that, and I'm confessing in public. Yes, absolutely, we all do. When we lose it, sometimes we do, right? But again, I'm learning how to respond differently. Healthier relationships aren't built by people who never get triggered, okay? So we all get triggered. They're built by people who are increasingly able to notice what's happening, take responsibility, repair, communicate clearly, and reconnect. Again, they're built by people who increasingly able to notice what's happening, take responsibility, repair, communicate clearly, and reconnect. So this week, don't try to change 10 things. I don't want you to go home and try to change so many things. I just want you to notice one thing about your pattern. And then the next it appears, try to respond in a different way. Okay? And again, I want to leave you with that idea. There are so many ways of communicating with the other person. Once I notice my pattern, I can, instead of saying, you did this to me, I can say, I am not okay. Give me 5 minutes. When this happened, it makes me feel this way. Again, when we take accountability, you'll notice your conversation will change. It will be different. Okay? Thank you so much for having me tonight, and thank you for your reflection. Thank you for participating. It was really nice to be with you all. Again, I'm going to open the floor for questions, and if you want to talk to me afterwards, I'll stick around for a couple of minutes.
I want to encourage everyone to continue the conversation because we really literally just got started. So please join us in the hall. For those in the prayer group for the midnight prayers, we understand you joined us and know that we took some of the time from you. We appreciate your understanding and hope that you found this useful as well, because relationships are with our Lord, with each other. We need that opportunity together to understand ourselves and what we can do to support each other. I want to thank Hanan. A round of applause, everyone. I kept reflecting a lot on my own triggers as I was listening to you and what I can begin to do differently. Thank you. All right, everyone, we do need to pray, so let's stand and join in prayer before we conclude and then continue in the hall. And I appreciate Hanan staying so that we can continue the dialogue. Ray, can I?
Okay. And make us worthy to pray thankfully, our Father who art in heaven. I will be